Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Leadership with Heart podcast. Uh, Today, I am so tickled to have Erika Whyte on here. She is with an amazing organization that's focusing on helping individuals find more financial security and feeling like they have a journey in their life that's like well planned out. But she really, where I met her as it was at an event, she selected me to be a keynote speaker for an event, and boy, I can't even wait to talk. There was a little bit of funny stuff that happened there too, but I was able to see her resilience, her ability to bounce back, her strength, her vision, and I knew I had to have her on the show. So, welcome, Erica.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh. So, tell everybody a little bit more about kind of where you are in your leadership journey, where are you working, all of those things.
Yeah, so I am the Vice President Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Janney Montgomery Scott. We're headquartered in Philadelphia, and we are a wealth management firm. So we consider ourselves a boutique wealth management firm because our financial advisors, which really are the bread and butter of the organization, they pretty much run their offices and meet the needs of our clients as they see fit. And we have about 130 plus offices up and down the East Coast primarily, and we are pushing into the Midwest. I've been here for almost 3 years. I've been working in financial services for, I'm ashamed to say, about 30 years. And I've seen a lot of change and iteration in this industry. I started in the industry where women had to come to work and wear pantyhose in 100-degree weather, right? So now we don't have to do that anymore, right? So there has been an evolution of change that has happened within this industry, and I'm really glad to be part of it, doing the work that I am doing here for Janney.
So one of the things like I said, I called out about you is this, you have just like a very clear vision. I remember we were on the call, on the planning call, and you're like, okay, I saw your video and like I needed to figure out how I was going to get that here. Like that's all, and I just love that. So I am curious to see how do you find that converts even in just how you are in your day to day there at Janny, or even just your life? Like, do you feel like you're just a person who like sees something, goes for it, and you don't let loose until it's done? I'm curious if that's just how you show up generally.
Yeah, it is. That is a really great descriptor. That is exactly how I show up. And that's something that I feel like has changed as I've grown in this role, but also has changed as I've grown as a human being and as I've gotten older. And I realize life is short and I want other people to get it, right? I'm so excited when I hear a story, when I hear a vision, when I'm part of that. I not only want that for myself, but I want everybody else to get it because I want people to have that aha moment where you may not necessarily agree with everything, but you can gain and take nuggets of and gems of information and apply it so that you're making your community better, you're making yourself better, you are showing up as your authentic self, unapologetic as who you are, but you're also doing it with grace and dignity. And when I saw your video, I was like, this lady has that, whatever that it is. And I know in this environment, it's going to resonate with people.
Mm, I love that. I love that. Like I want it, and I'm going after it. I think we need more people doing that. Part of this whole journey of me writing this next book, or the book that's coming out in February next month on self leadership, is that concept of like waiting. Like no more waiting, no more blaming, no more waiting for green lights or like somebody to come save you or to tell you when is the right time to turn left or right. It's time for you to kind of own it and grab it by the horns. What do you think are some of the contributing factors that helped you to evolve into the person that was more of a like go get what I want type of thing and stop waiting? What was it that were the factors for that?
I think it was, quite honestly, it was my mom. So my mom was born and raised in Central America in Costa Rica, and she knew she wanted better for herself. And knowing that she wanted better for herself meaning meant that she had to leave where she was and journey off somewhere and do something new, not knowing what was on the other side of that, of the plane, like what was on the other side of the ocean that I had to traverse in order to get here, and understanding that there could be language barriers, there could be economic barriers, there could be other things that would have stopped any other person, and she just didn't have, and I learned this as she was older and I was experiencing her resilience and her tenacity and her fierceness, and I didn't realize how much it was part of who I am and how I operate. But it was, you know what? I can be fearless. I can go for it. I can leave my place of comfort or something that was familiar, and I can go step out into the beyond and say, you know what? I'm going to do that. I can do that. And her can do attitude just made me feeling like, you know what? I don't even have the right not to go for it because she paved the way and gave me the ability to do that.
So she kind of, it's like, it's almost like you feel you're compelled to do it because otherwise,
Yes,
who are you not to continue that legacy of,
exactly.
like you said, just like I'm going after it and nothing's stopping me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I didn't realize that until you're much older and during those teenage years it's hard to wrestle with that. But I think quite honestly as I became a parent and I didn't realize I was like, "Oh my gosh, am I turning into my mom?" And is that a good thing? That was an excellent thing. And it still continues to reverberate and it still continues to manifest. And I can see those tendencies in my children. And so I am paying that forward, not just with them, but all the encounters that I have with people that you can do this. Don't self-doubt. There is that imposter syndrome sometimes that can snarl us and
Hmm.
that can paralyze us, but it's up to us to find that inner strength, that inner fierceness, that tenacity, that willingness to go beyond myself and say, you know what, I got this. I got this. Later for you, if you don't want to have this, you don't want to go with me, it's okay. I'm going to continue to go on.
It's like, oh, I really do feel like this is why I love you so much because this is the thing I think is missing so much. I mean, like there's in 2019 I did this TEDx called Transforming Adversity into Opportunity. I didn't do it because I thought I was going to be trying to like market that talk. I did that because I was literally sick. I'm everywhere around me. I kept hearing people have this like victim voice of like, oh, I can't do this, like whatever it was. And I'm not discounting, for example, those who really are true victims of like
Right,
crimes and maybe those who are
right,
really are struggling with like mental health. That's not, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about everybody else, which is still a
right.
lot of Americans, a lot of people in the world who just can't get out of their own way. And so I was like, I got to put some more stuff out there. And every time I'm like, someone said, well, why are you writing this self-leadership book? Well, I'm back at the same point. Now it's what, 5 years, 6 years later, and I'm back at hearing a lot of the victim things, the green light
Yeah.
waiting, the all of those things. And it's like when I hear something like you, it's really refreshing. And we just need to be able to replicate it because there's inside of all of the things you said, there's definitely resilience, like a thickness of skin that
Hmm.
where you hit a wall and sometimes you hit it and you smash. And
Yeah.
sometimes you hit it, you smash through it. And
Yep.
sometimes you have to jump around it, right? All these things in order to come out stronger. I think a lot of people right now, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. I think a lot of people right now are succumbing to the challenges, obstacles, barriers more than they did before. I don't know. Tell me what you think about that. Are you seeing any of that too?
Yeah, I am. I would be lying if I didn't say that there are times where I feel like that, right? But there is this muscle that I've learned to exercise that says, you know what? Yes, am I going to allow myself that being able to feel rejected, being able to feel like I'm not making a difference, being able to, I'm going to allow myself because I'm a human being. And it would be not authentic to me if I didn't say, you know what, I need to grieve this. I need to experience this. I need to go through this. But then I was like, you know what? If I fall, I need to fall on my back so I can look up.
Mm.
And when I look up, I can get up. And when I get up, I can move forward because there's no sense in me wallowing in what was. Learn your lessons, dust yourself off, water on a duck's back, and move forward. And yes, there are going to be obstacles. They're going to be real and perceived. But how am I going to manage through those things? Right? Because we have correcting storms, we have directing storms. And so, do I need to course correct to get through
Mhm.
that storms? Sure, right? To get through that storm, I need to course correct. But then I have a directing storm where, like, you know what? It looks like there's an obstacle over there and it looks stormy. But on the other side of that obstacle, I can see where I need to be and I can see that I am going to be making a difference. So I'm going to go through that storm. Yes, am I going to be battered around and bruised? But guess what? Every storm has to cease at some point, every storm. So when it ceases, what am I going to be? Who am I going to be? What do I want? What legacy do I want to leave on the other side of that storm? And who am I bringing with me through that experience?
Ooh, I like that idea of who you bring with me. That kind of makes me think. For some reason, my mind has been moving towards the idea of mentorship, either informal or formal, where or like lifting people up, along our path. I've been thinking about that too, as it relates to leadership legacy and how like where I'm at right now, and I've done like it's so funny because I was like, I have this book, then I have another book comes out on teamwork and burnout, the fall of 2026. And I'm like, I'm kind of exhausted. I'm ready to stop. Like I have to just pause on the writing of the books and thinking about myself. What is the next step? And so part of that is this legacy leaving thing in my early 50s. By then I'll be mid 50s. Legacy leaving. How do I pass on all this stuff? I've gotten to this point. Like, what do I do? So I've been thinking long and hard about that. I'm curious to know where you're at, like in the role you're at or in the organization, if you have either if you've had your own mentor that helped kind of to get you through this place here, and is there like a mentorship program there? Do you have is there something that they do to make sure that mentoring is happening? So your own personal mentor, and then is there kind of mentorship program there?
So I'll answer the latter part first.
Okay.
Yes, we do have a mentorship program here at Janney, and one I'm very proud to be a part of. And we're working really hard at making sure that again, we are evolving and we're helping people to evolve and we're helping people to network and all of those wonderful nuggets that people learn from mentorship. When I came into this business years ago, I needed a job, right? I got a college degree and I did what my mother said, get a college degree. And then it was like, okay, what do I do next? I needed a job, but I'm very clear that my job morphed into a career, right? So it was less of me going into an office, doing what I needed to do, understanding the policy, the procedures, and all of those things, and how my job, what I was responsible for, was matrixed or tangential to somebody else's job. So I understood that. Eventually, it turned into a career when I started to talk to, literally have just very simple and sophomore conversations with peers and colleagues and people in the business and people outside of the business. And so, very naturally, these organic relationships started to build and they started to manifest. I didn't know it was called mentorship at the time. And I'm being very honest. There
Yeah.
was no definition. And it's so different now that people will ask me, would you be my mentor? I didn't even have the wherewithal to understand that 35 years ago, right? But it started
Mm.
to naturally happen. And I'm very clear around what my responsibility is when I am talking to young people and when I have peer mentors. So I seek out mentors myself now because I want to be in this constant state of learning. Because I think if you stop learning, you stop existing, right? So I want
Mm.
to make sure that I surround myself with what I call my personal board of directors. So who do I reach out to when I have questions? Who do I bounce things off of? Where are the people that I feel this allyship with and all of that? And in on those personal board of directors, I have a couple of contrarians, and I have those on purpose because I don't want everybody just telling me, "Oh, you're great. This is going to happen. This is going to work. Let's circle back because this is the way." I want somebody to really check me on some things and test me on some things and see how resilient I can be or how obstinate I can be, right? But I that to me is a well-rounded representation of mentorship, sponsorship, advocacy, and that's what I try to impart to others that I come across, whether they are peers, colleagues, or whether they're younger people, right? And so I really want to be very unapologetic around helping younger people traverse this thing, particularly young women. There were things that I experienced early on in my career that would just be absolutely off the table for young women, right? Somebody commenting on your clothes, how short is your skirt? All of those things that happened to me early in my career where if people are experiencing things like that, you can now arm them with the right dialogue to really combat these kind of behaviors, these microaggressions and other things that happen. They happened before I didn't know what the heck the name was called. 30 years ago, I didn't know what microaggression meant. I darn sure know what it means now. And so I have a responsibility to make sure others understand it and can address those things. So those that mentorship, that sponsorship, that advocacy, all of that wrapped in a bow is because I really don't want a young person to traverse that same thing that I experienced 35 years ago. You shouldn't
Mm,
have to do that. But I want to arm you with the right language, the right information, the right advocacy so that we can eventually break that cycle.
mm. Love, 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 love. So, for those who are listening, obviously you hear that Erica, you can see her heart, you can hear the intelligence, I mean, just all the good things. I am curious if you can think of a time when this is called leadership with heart. I talk about caring leadership. Is there a time in your journey where you're like, ooh, I did the way I responded or how I showed up was not very like leadership with heartish, wasn't very caring leadership. Can you think of a specific scenario or story where that you could share with people? And then what did you like? Was there a trigger? Was there something that kind of snapped you out of the way of being or way of thinking or showing up that then was enlightening to you? And then like what did you like? How did you move forward from there?
Yeah. I can think of one period of time where I had a leader who I was on a call and I was presenting to other leaders at a previous organization. So this is not my current organization, but this was years ago at a previous organization. I was presenting some material and I started to use some words that my leader at the time thought were too advanced, right? And so that particular leader said, Erica, you're so bright, you're so articulate, you speak so well, but I need you to talk to these leaders as if you're talking to second graders. And in essence, they were telling me, dumb down your language so that others can understand. I felt paralyzed in that moment. That to me was a moment where I could have, in hindsight, advocated for myself. You know what? I put myself through college. I really didn't I paid to learn those words, right? I paid somebody
Hmm,
money to use these big SAT words or the New York Times puzzle words. I paid somebody for me to be able to understand, to write them down, and to know how to use them in my everyday language. How dare you ask me to dumb that down because you're not comfortable with that language? I didn't know how to do that then. I didn't know what to say. And so what did I do? I did dumb it down. I did change the way I spoke to people. And I did that for a period of time until someone stopped me and they said, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And it took someone to shake me and say, you know what? No, you need to keep using the language that you've been using. You need to keep elevating yourself and bring others up to where you are. You don't need to come down two or three flights of steps to bring that. Nope, you need to stay where you are at that higher level of elevation. And you need to send them a rope to say, hey, come on up here with me. Let's use those big SAT words together versus me going back down. And I think that was a pivotal moment for me, was to self step into my self advocacy and use
mm,
my voice so that I am bringing you along with me and sharing that we can do this together. We can do this the easy way, which is let me educate you as to why that's important for me to say these words or to use them this in that speech this way, right? Versus me shy away from that and dim my light to make you feel comfortable.
mm. Yeah.
And that was the turning point for me. And again, that happened so late in life that when I come across young people, that is one of the lessons. You have to be bold and you have to be brave and you have to step into your authenticity. But that doesn't mean that you have to make someone else feel less than
Mhm.
in the way that you do that. You make sure that you are advocating for yourself that brings them along with you.
You're taking us to self-leadership church right here. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I'm just this is just so good. And it reminds me of the Marianne Williamson poem that we all like bring up about that whole idea of like not minimizing you for the benefit of someone else. And I've struggled with this too because the whole law thing. And my husband would
Hmm.
say, "Why aren't you using your initials, JD? Why aren't you doing this?" I feel like when you're talking very whatever, I don't even know. And I said, well, my thing is one of my biggest values is relational. It's a value and a strength of mine that I am a relator and that I can connect with people, all types of people pretty quickly. And so I know that sometimes I also can be very lawyerly. And I can be I could be a little scary force if I allowed it to happen. So because of that, I have worked quite hard to strike a balance between having a power and a strength and having this like level of relatability, compassion, and empathy. It is a hard thing to balance when you have that as a
Hmm.
natural way of like you just have this way of like, getting things like kind of like you do. We lean into that space of like strength. And
Right.
so I've told him before, listen, for the stuff that I talk about, as I talk about empathy, compassion, relating to people, connecting to people, it's extremely important to strike the balance. And while you might want me to be like way more on this side, over index on this
Right.
way of being,
Right.
it in my mind is not the most effective way to show up. Now, having said that, I am interested enough in my branding. A lot of my stuff is kind of coming a little full circle where I'm leaning a little bit more heavily on the JD branding and the loft
Hmm.
stuff. But it's not because I want to, or it's not because I think, oh, this validates me. In fact, like
Right. Right.
I sit here with nothing in my background. There are no law degrees. There's no nothing over here. It's just nothingness,
Right.
right?
Right.
And people are like, no, you need to put that everywhere. And you do this. And I'm like, ah,
Yeah.
that disconnects me from the other people. So it is
Yeah.
funny how we have these discussions or this discussion here where it's like how much keeping your strength, maintaining your strength, where maybe you feel the most natural, or maybe you don't feel the most natural, but you kind of need to do more of that so that people will look to you as a leader. And then as women and as women of color, this is a whole other different conversation
Hmm.
because for that whole you speak well, you articulate, you're like all those things that just really come up to the surface,
Right.
which
Right.
frustrates us beyond measure.
Like nails on a
That
chalkboard.
Yeah, like what? We can't be people who articulate what's happening there.
Hmm.
It's a whole nother thing where it's like, am I doing this thing to dampen my shine, to cover the clay over who I am, or am I doing this thing really for true human connection? And that's the thing that I always balance. I'm always kind of, it's not really as much a struggle as it used to be. Now I just say, which one needs to come out, and it's a matter of choice
Yeah.
about how
Yeah.
much of that balance that
Yes.
I'm striking.
Yes. I would definitely agree. It can be very situational, right? And so
Hmm.
what situation am I in, or what am I in at that moment? Where am I walking into that I need to be able to strike that balance? Who am I
Hmm.
showing? It's still all me. It's still
Yes.
all you, but
Yes.
which part of me am I leaning into? And
Yes.
which part of me am I saying, okay, you're there, but we're going to put that person kind of on the back burner. And eventually sometimes I think particularly as women of color, we balance that so much more because sometimes we need to
Hmm.
pull that back burner item to the forefront in the
Yeah.
moment. But again, it's how do we show up? How are we
Yes.
showing up, and how are we showing up for ourselves first, not for the
Mm.
person we're having that in conversation with, or
Mhm.
not for that item we're talking about. How am I showing up for me first? The best version of me, so that you are getting the best version of me in that conversation, because it's important to me that in every encounter, I don't care if I'm holding the door at the local Wawa for somebody to come in, or I am speaking to the president of the firm, or I am talking to my children. I want that interaction to be memorable in whatever capacity it was. Because if you smiling at somebody that you open the door for at the bank or the local whatever store, you don't know what impact you're going to have on someone's day. Just a smile or a hello or a full on presentation, everything in between. And you're doing that for yourself first because that's how you want to show up in spaces. But people are going to get, as you say, Heather, they're getting that overflow. They're
Mm.
getting that extra. They're getting that. poured over, overflow. You're still keeping some for yourself because it's, again,
Mhm.
showing up for yourself. But how are people experiencing your overflow? And that's what I
Mm.
want people to make sure that they understand.
Oh my goodness. Oh, so good. Okay, so as we because you and I I have a feeling we could talk for hours. Yeah, this could be we're going to church on this. I told you said that, so we could be talking for hours. As we think about like the leaders right now and just the stuff that we're facing in the literally just kind of chaotic world that's out there, and
Yeah.
we think about caring leadership, leading with heart, part of the things you just went to, but what maybe be a couple of pearls of wisdom you think they should focus on to kind of get them through this week, to get them through this
Yeah.
month, through the year? What might be a couple of pearls that you think they could kind of rest on and meditate on?
See people. 2 words. See people. And I can leave people to unpack that, right? Just see people. See the humanity in everyone. I pass a lot of homeless people on my way to the office. I see them. I don't walk past them. They're not anonymous. They're people. I interact with every different kind of person. And so my pearl of wisdom would be stop and see the humanity in people. Because when you have that particular lens, you feel better about yourself, you feel better about those other people, right? Have a heart for people. Before you can be a leader, have a heart for people and have it be authentic. Because when you do that, everything else will fall into place. Everything. Whether I disagree with you politically, religiously, geopolitically, it doesn't matter. Can I see you? There's a lot of things I don't agree with that's going on right now. A heck of a lot. And we could spend a whole bunch of time on that. But do I see you? Can I look past what's coming out of your mouth that I think maybe is so objectionable? But do I see you? If I can see you, then we can have a dialogue because we can disagree on a lot of things. But I'm seeing the humanity in you as an individual. And that's something that my mother, whether she knew it or not, that's one of her pearls that she taught me. See
Mm.
people.
Boom. Erika Whyte. Boom. For those who are listening, I know you are just like, if you're, I don't know, if you're not sitting here just going "Ugh," like mesmerized, I don't really know what to say. This will be promoted all over the place. I'm so excited for everybody to hear this message. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining me and
you.
saying yes.
Oh,
And oh my gosh, woo, so,
this is
so
just the
good.
beginning of this relationship. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to even be in your orbit. I truly am
Oh
because
my
I
gosh.
believe in reason, season, or lifetime. And I am just thrilled to be in one of those categories right now with you, Heather. So thank you very much.
Thanks everybody too for listening to the Leadership Heart podcast. Be well.